Hi, welcome to Paint Talk, the weekly show where I answer all of your questions on oil painting. So let's not waste any time and jump on into the questions. All right, our first question comes from Clay Green. It says, hey coach, if I take a break from painting midway through it, do I need to make any adjustments or changes before starting back painting? Does this affect the dry times of the different layers? Well, that depends. It depends on how long of a break you're talking about. If you're just talking about like a day or two, you probably don't have a lot to worry about. If it's like a week or so, it's like long enough where the paint becomes like fully dry to the touch, then you're probably gonna need to start worrying about fat over lean. Now, what is fat over lean? Fat over lean is a way of painting to avoid cracking in the future. See, oil paint takes a long time to dry. Even though it is dry to the touch, it is still wet underneath and on the inside of the paint. And that paint is constantly expanding as it dries. So let's say if you paint down some paint and you let it fully dry and then you paint over some thin paint with like paint thinner over top of it, that thin paint isn't going to be able to withstand the expanding of the paint underneath it, and it's going to crack. You need to have fatter paint over top of it, and fatter means it has more medium. The medium is going to give it the flexibility to not crack as it dries. Now, I honestly don't run into this very often. I've never really had to worry about it because most of my paintings I finish rather quickly, or I'm constantly working on them, so they're always constantly wet and I don't have to worry about painting over a layer that's completely dry. But if you are allowing your painting to get completely dry and then you're painting over top of it, you will have to worry about this whole fat over lean thing. Again, which is just using paint with more of your medium as you paint over drier layers. Now, another problem you could run into by letting your painting completely dry is the colors change a little bit, especially if you're using ivory black. Certain colors, when they dry, they lose their richness. Your darks aren't as rich. So if you really want to get back to what the colors truly look like when they're wet, or what they'll look like when you're done and varnishing them, you can do a process called oiling out or oiling in. I forget. Anyways, it's a process where you put in some medium on this dry paint to bring back the colors to life. I've seen people do it with liquid original. I've seen people do it with retouch varnish, not regular varnish, retouch varnish. A lot of artists also like to do this because, say if you have a section of your painting that you haven't painted in a while and it's completely dry, but you got another section that you have painted recently and the colors are, the paint is still wet, the colors are rich, and you want to see what it looks like compared to the other section you're painting that is dry and the colors are dull, you can do this oiling process, which will get everything back to even. You can see how everything's working. Okay, Clay Green, I hope that answered your question. Moving on to the next question. Robert Roberts says, what is the best way to begin selling your art? Before I get into any of this, I'm gonna let you know I have never had my work in a gallery. I've never sold any of my work in a gallery. I've never even really approached a gallery to selling my work. I have, though, on the other hand, been doing commissions since I was, a teenager, like 16, 17 years old. It started out with doing stuff for family members, then close friends, and it just kind of builds and builds and builds. And I recommend doing that as soon as you want to. I don't believe in like holding off until you're really good. If somebody wants to pay you for the work you're doing, that means that they've seen your work and they either want to buy that piece or they want you to do a piece for them, so therefore they think you're good enough. Now, don't set your price too high. You'll get a lot of people out there that want to set their prices really high. And I mean, if you're selling your work regularly and you can price it high, go for it. So for a long time, I was waiting tables, and I always kind of saw me painting as a comparison to waiting tables. So if I was going to do a 9x12 portrait of somebody, that'd take me about 5 to 8 hours to do. What would that translate into working at the restaurant? So it made it very easy for me to charge what some would consider a lower rate at like $200, because I figured, hey, I could either go work a shift waiting tables or I could do this portrait. Now, a lot of people will be like, no, you got to charge more than that. You're devaluing the price of your work. And it's just, I never fully bought into that because I've seen so many artists, they would price that 9x12 portrait at like $800 and they just wouldn't sell anything. They wouldn't sell anything. They wouldn't get any commissions. And it's like, okay, well, while you're going and working off that $200 at your serving job or your Home Depot job, I'm going to be home painting, getting better, enjoying myself, and making $200, which I think is just a lot better of a deal. Go wait tables for 6 hours and make like $150, or do something you really enjoy doing and making $200. Now, yes, as time has gone on, I've had to raise my prices according to how much work I was getting and how good that I thought my work was. And in the end, everything is about reps. Reps. In terms of getting better, in terms of doing better commission, in terms of working with clients, in terms of selling work and how to price your work. You're only gonna find that out by getting reps, doing it as many times as possible. I've made so many mistakes with pricing my work, with commissions that I accept, commissions that I don't accept, my skill level. level, it's all increased with reps, and there's really no way to get around that. So if you're waiting until you're good enough to do a commission and you're turning down commissions, wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, as far as just straight up selling your work, not commissions, I personally would not recommend going to a gallery. You can see what happens. Maybe they'll say yes, and maybe they'll take your work. I don't know. It happens all the time. I just think that you have a better shot of going the online route. Every single day I see more and more artists who are successful gallery artists moving heavily towards online. I've seen very successful gallery artists completely take their work out of galleries and just selling them online themselves and getting rid of the middleman. The way to think about it is, if you build up your social media following, your internet presence, how many pairs of eyes can you get on a piece of work opposed to it being put into a gallery, and how many pair of eyes per day will see it there? There's some artists that have a ton of followers, and they post a picture and tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people will see it. Opposed to if you put it into a gallery, you're lucky if 10 people see it a day. Now, you do have to factor in the people that are going into a gallery are people that are looking to buy art and do collect art, and the probability of them actually buying a piece of art is much, much, much higher than just some random person seeing your Instagram page. I just feel like there's so much more opportunity though when you put the time and effort into posting and creating your online presence. I mean, there are even galleries online. Galleries have Instagram pages, galleries have Facebook pages. Tag them. If there's galleries around you that you want to be in, kind of test out the waters by tagging them in your work. If they really like it, they'll come to you. They'll say, hey, I really like this piece. Would you consider being one of our artists? You never know. Now, another big thing is, don't be afraid to take off your creative hat and put on your business hat. Selling your art is a business, which means you got to understand the target audience that will like your work and making sure that you get your work in front of that target audience. It also means that if you are creating an online presence, you have to be aware of what people are liking and create work that will draw those people in. Now, I know for a lot of artists, they'd say that's absolutely wrong and absurd. You should only be thinking about what you want to do. Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I don't personally make artwork to hang in my own house. I make work for people to enjoy. I don't know, it also might be that for like the past decade or so, like I was heavily focused on filmmaking, which is a medium where you're constantly thinking about the audience. Is the audience understanding the story? Is the audience liking the story? Are they confused? Are they enjoying this? For some reason, it's really okay for that medium of art to consider the audience so much, but for some reason, painting, people tend to just cast that to the wayside. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm like taking polls and only doing art that I think people will like I'm definitely just doing stuff that I want to do. I wouldn't do something I wouldn't want to do, but I am paying attention to what people respond to. Like if you're painting portraits and landscapes and this and that, and one particular genre of your painting is definitely getting a lot more attention than the other. Like say if you're pet portraits, every time you post a pet portrait, it does very, very well, but every time you do a landscape, it doesn't turn out that great. That doesn't mean stop painting landscapes, but it means your audience really likes you when you do this. And just because you kind of like specialize in selling a certain genre of artwork or a certain type of artwork does not mean by any means that you have to stop doing any other artwork that you want to do. It's just you can start creating a brand, or you can start creating an audience that really likes this particular thing that you do. I could probably go on for like an entire 40-minute video on selling your work and the business side and all that stuff, but we got more questions to move on to, so let's move on. Jane Julia, great video. Hey, for oil paintings painted a la Prima style, how long do you have to wait before varnishing it? Well, technically it's like 6 months or something more. Like when you actually like use true varnish and varnish a painting, you want the painting to be completely dry all the way through. Like I was saying in that earlier question with like the whole fat overlaying and the paint still being wet on the inside even though it's dry to the touch and the cracking and all that, that goes for varnish. If you put a layer of varnish over a painting that's not fully dry, you do run the risk of cracking because the paint is still expanding. So what do you do? Like if you have a painting for a client, or you have a painting that you want to get to a show or whatever, and you don't have 6 months to let it dry to varnish it, use retouch varnish. A lot of painters use this when it's dried to the touch. You still want to kind of test it out. Sometimes I'll like take my fingernail and put it in areas that I think will be the last to dry, like really thick areas of paint, or areas with a lot of white. White dries, titanium white dries very slowly. But retouch varnish has like the flexibility to put it over the painting when it's not fully dry, and it won't crack, and you'll be able to bring all those colors to life. You'll be able to bring the richness of your colors back. You'll get rid of all the dark areas that are dulled down, and they'll be back rich and have a lot of depth to them. So retouch varnish, not regular varnish. Retouch varnish is your answer doing that. Next question is from Dale Hallmark. Just curious, ever paint a painting in ink? Do you like illustration art? Ever do any sumi painting? Sumai. I don't know if I'm saying that right. No, I haven't. I haven't really done anything with ink in a very, very, very long time. I have though been doing a lot of gouache studies before my landscape paintings. Gouache is like kind of like a watercolor that you can get pretty thick with, and it also has white. I use it for a lot of like little thumbnail studies before I do a landscape painting to figure out the composition and the colors. colors. I really like it because it's very fast, it's very easy, it dries really quickly, so I can layer it very quickly. It allows me to get a quick look at what's going on in like a landscape before I jump and paint it in oils on a bigger canvas. So right now it's just drawn with pencil or graphite, oils, and the gouache studies. Maybe I should try something different. I don't know. All right, next question comes from Floopy Doopy. I always have problems with grass. It just looks so flat. If it is in the background, it makes sense, but when it's right in front of you, it just feels wrong. Any tips? Yes, grass can be tricky. I had a problem with that for a very long time, like especially if you were like painting a field and you got this big field in your landscape and it's like taking up most of the canvas. It's like, what do I do? Like, I just can't just paint this all one, color. What I've found is that a lot of time the answer is less is more. Keep it simple. I feel like if you really dial in the correct value of the grass, which can be pretty tricky, it can't be too light, it can't be too dark. Remember our value planes from landscape painting, the lightest plane is going to be your sky, followed by your ground plane, then any slanted planes, and then the darkest plane is going to be in the upright planes like trees, houses, stuff like that. So there is this specific window of value that you do have to hit. The ground can't be lighter than your sky, it can't be darker than your mountains or any structures or trees. It has to be dialed in just right, so check that first. Also, if you have a lot of grass and you have grass in the foreground and grass in the background, look for changes in color that you can have. Like the grass in the foreground is definitely gonna have a lot more reds and yellows in it, and the grass in the background is definitely gonna have a lot more blues in it. Because with atmospheric perspective, which I made a video on, I put a link to that right there, as things get further in the distance, the first colors to drop out are yellow and then red, and then you're left with blues. So keep that in mind to add some variety in your grass and to give it depth. You also can have more variety of colors, say in the foreground grass and the background grass. Like maybe in the foreground, it's close enough. You can see different shades of greens and maybe reds of the dirt underneath. But as you get further back, the grass gets more simple. Also, look to other landscape painters that handle grass very well. I suggest Brian Mark Taylor. He does a lot of plein air work and really great with landscapes. Check out some of his work. He's like one of my favorite plein air painters. Paints in a good, simple style. And if you check out some of his work, I think you'll find some good examples of how to handle grass. All right, last question of the day is for Gabby Martins. Hi Chris, have you made a video reviewing certain paint brands? If not, would you ever consider one? I'm curious about Geneva oil paints by Mark Carter, the draw mix paint guy. I'd be interested to know your opinion. Have you tried them? I've never made a video reviewing a particular brand of oil paint. I've thought about this. If you guys out there would like me to review certain brands of paint, let me know in the comments section. I already am going to be doing a brush line video. I'm getting that all set up right now. Like I have to order the brushes and have them delivered to me to make the video and everything. But as far as Mark Carter and the draw mix paint, Geneva oil paints, I have not tried them. Maybe I will. Would you guys out there, would you like me to do a review on the Geneva oil paint? Comment below. If enough people want it, I definitely will do it. I've seen videos of him talking about that paint. It looks like really good paint. It looks very creamy. The colors look good. I think he says like you don't even need medium, which I'd be interested to try out because when I paint, I use a variety of different thicknesses of paint throughout my painting. Sometimes I'm painting with like a wash, sometimes I'm using linseed oil, sometimes I'm just using straight paint, but it's all very different thicknesses. And I wonder if I would have that variety with this paint since it's already kind of pre-mixed with medium. I don't know. Maybe I should try them out. Again, let me know in the comments section. All right, that's it for this week's Paint Talk. If you want your questions answered, put those questions in the comments section of this video and I will do my best to answer them on the next week's Paint Talk. Now, if you're looking for painting video tutorials, like full in real time, me talking while I'm painting video tutorials, I offer those on my Patreon page, which you can find a link to in the description below. If you want to see what I'm painting on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. I also offer you this video and this video. They both will change your life forever. Just pick one. You can't go wrong.